Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the death toll continues to climb after the Louisville plane crash, and one victim is believed to be a child. Plus, how that fiery explosion is impacting air quality in parts of the state.
And first alert weather days have been declared for the weekend. Details coming up.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. We continue to follow the devastating news out of Louisville. At least 12 people are dead after a UPS plane crashed during takeoff about this time in Louisville yesterday. 3 people were on the plane. The other deaths were on the ground after a massive fire. Governor Beshear says one of the victims is a child. Investigators are on the scene and they say they've already recovered the black box and reviewed security footage. CBS's Nicole Valdez is at Louisville's International Airport to begin our coverage.
28 members of the National Transportation Safety Board arrived at Louisville's International Airport on Wednesday to start their investigation into the terrifying crash of a UPS plane.
And we're deeply sorry, and we are here to try to find out not only what happened, but why it happened, and more importantly, how do we prevent it from happening again.
Video shows the plane's wing on fire during takeoff and the aircraft exploding into flames shortly after leaving the runway. The plane hit a nearby petroleum recycling plant and an auto parts facility. And with 38,000 gallons of fuel, the fire raged overnight.
There are landing gear that's out there. You would not see a whole fuselage. With the intense fire that was there, most of things are gone.
Officials say this disaster could have been so much worse, as many of those employees had actually already left those businesses before the crash. Kentucky's governor says the state's disaster relief is now set up to help families of those victims, including paying for their funerals.
In Kentucky, we grieve together and we support one another.
Captain Norman C. Wright Jr. is a retired UPS pilot who spoke with others who fly the same MD-11 plane.
And they were just dumbfounded as much as I am. It's so unusual. It's hard to wrap your mind around what happened. 3
crew members were on board. UPS employs about 20,000 workers at their processing facility in Louisville. Local officials say almost everyone in the city knows someone who works there. Nicole Valdez, CBS News, Louisville.
The airport has reopened one runway. A shelter-in-place order is down to just a quarter-mile radius around the crash site, and officials are monitoring the water and air quality in the area. Governor Andy Beshear declared a state of emergency to ensure resources can be sent to those who need it quickly. This includes support for emergency management and the Kentucky National Guard. State resources will be used for disaster resource management, expenses related to response, as well as reimbursement. At the same time, the governor created the Team Kentucky Emergency Relief Fund to help those affected by the crash. Governor Beshear is praising first responders after last night's plane crash, saying the outcome could have been so much worse. The governor said the cargo plane went down just feet from several busy areas, including a restaurant, the city's convention center, and a large Ford plant.
Let me tell you, this plane barely missed a restaurant bar. It was very close to a very large Ford plant with hundreds, if not 1,000+ workers. It was very close to our convention center that's having a big livestock show that people were arriving for. So really tough, but recognize it could be worse.
Governor Beshear also thanked firefighters and investigators who continue working at the scene today. He says last night 50 fire units and more than 200 emergency crews responded. Well, you could actually see the smoke from that crash on radar last night. We showed it to you at 11. Otherwise, we've seen clear skies, some nice weather conditions, but changes are coming for the end of the week. First Alert meteorologist Eric Dean has the latest.
Oh, yes, they are, and that's why First Alert weather days have been declared starting Friday, going throughout the weekend as well as Monday. Here's a look at the breakdown. Strong storms likely Friday night. Heavy wind will be a main contender. Calm Saturday, but flying flakes are in the forecast for the day on Sunday. Feels like temperatures on Monday How about the teens and low 20s? So let's go ahead and talk about Friday first, where the majority of the WYMT viewing area is under a marginal risk for severe weather or a level 1 out of 5. You go over towards portions of Wayne County as well as portions of Pulaski County. There's a slight risk for severe weather or a level 2. Now that slight risk stretches from just south of Lexington through Bowling Green as well as Nashville. Then it goes even farther south into portions of Mississippi as well as portions of Alabama. Right now, First Alert Live pinpoint Doppler radar, all is quiet throughout eastern Kentucky as well as the Ohio Valley. Look at this, high pressure is in control. Right now, we're seeing temperatures in the 60s and 70s, but again, hope you enjoyed that because there's a big change coming. Details in the First Alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. One part of the fallout from last night's deadly UPS plane crash in Louisville is the thick plume of smoke that hung over the area for hours. The smoke was so heavy it prompted a shelter-in-place order for nearby neighborhoods. Experts say there was a good reason for that warning.
Smoke is a potent irritant, and if someone has respiratory issues such as asthma or COPD, then they're going to be more sensitive to something like smoke.
Dr. Miller advises turning off HVAC systems, keeping doors and windows closed, and staying indoors until air quality improves. She says most lingering effects from the smoke should clear within the next day or so. Officials at Bluegrass Airport in Lexington say every year emergency crews run through drills to make sure everyone is prepared if a disaster occurs. Photojournalist Darnell Crenshaw and reporter Kelsey Soto shows us how police and fire train, and you'll hear from a woman who dropped off her husband at Bluegrass Airport, and after hearing last night's news, she's concerned for his safety.
Kind of something that a lot of folks in the community don't realize is that we have an ARF training center located here at Bluegrass Airport. So ARF stands for Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting. So we're one of just only a handful or two of those throughout the country that serve to train firefighters from different entities across the country.
At that facility, they have a full-size simulator for training. Also, the airport has its own police and fire department. Every year, the airport runs tabletop emergency exercises, and every 3 years, members of the community come out to the airfield to reenact injured passengers.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, each time it's a good learning experience. The scenarios are always different, and it's obviously helpful to keep things top of mind and fresh.
LaDonna New wasn't even aware of these safety procedures.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. I didn't even actually think about that, but that's good to know.
She's waiting for her husband's flight to take off. He's headed on a 13-hour plane ride to Iraq for business. New says her husband, who flies a lot, heard the news in Louisville and was nervous about flying on Wednesday.
He hates flying anyway, and then when he watched that last night, this morning he was a nervous wreck, and he's usually a pretty calm man.
The airplane crash in Louisville hits close to home for New. She knew 3 people who died on Flight 5191 that crashed in Lexington almost 20 years ago. Watching from the cell phone parking lot, she doesn't take the safety of her husband's flight for granted.
Like I said, sitting here watching these planes take off right here, I'm thinking, that could just happen to him just as easy as it happened yesterday.
As Kelsey Soto reporting, the FAA regulates firefighters be on staff 24/7 to respond to an emergency. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the federal government sets a record for the longest government shutdown in history. But could there be a glimmer of hope that it will end soon?
And in the world of weather, all is quiet now, but get ready for some weekend weather whiplash. Details in a few minutes.